What's good, everybody? Today I want to talk about Footlocker's new system. Now, I guess it's not really new. Honestly, I wanted to make this video when it first came out, when I first found out about it. And then something bad happened, then something good happened. Then I was like, all right, maybe I should just make the video. And then something bad happened again. So we're going to go ahead and make the video, man. So if you aren't aware, Footlocker uses a system called what now is called FLX system. And before, when it first started out, I don't even think it had a name to it. I think it was just like the reservation system. And throughout the years, it has evolved, whether you want to say it's for the better or the worse. And me personally, I think overall, it just has gotten worse. Even with me working, I worked at Champs, which is under Footlocker, so we use the same system. So being a reseller beforehand and then being a part of the company, I just think at its current state now, it's just terrible on every end when it comes to the customers aspect and Footlocker's, like when it comes to their sales and things like that. So we're gonna break down in this video basically how the system works and the evolution on it, and why I don't think it's good, and what I guess they could improve to go moving forward. So starting at the beginning, and I don't know what it was prior to me reselling, so we're just gonna stick from, I don't know, 2014, 2015-ish. So back in the day, during that time, Footlocker, they had a reservation system where you needed 10-minute head starts, and that would get you to the peak of, it would have the highest of your chances to cop the shoe. Now, how do you get 10-minute head starts? So I think 3 minutes of it was just by being a VIP member. And that you get it for free just by having an account, verifying your email address, boom, simple. And then another part was you have to spend X amount of money. And honestly, back then, I don't even think that it was that much to get at the next status. I think it was only have to spend like $300, which is pairs of shoes, or, you know, a pair of shoes and some clothes. And then the last thing to get you the full rest of the 10-minute head start was that you had to check in. So you had to physically go to the store and ask an employee, hey, what is the check-in code for this week's Jordan release? And you would ask the associate and they would just give it to you. They would give you a 4-digit PIN code. You didn't have to buy anything. You just had to show your face in the store. And honestly, I thought this was a good concept. I didn't really take advantage of it because I was young and I didn't understand and no one was really helping me, but that's besides the point. But I do think that it was a good concept because not only are you not really charging anybody to participate in getting these new shoes outside of just being somewhat of a customer by spending $300, which anybody could spend $300, right? In hindsight, like on paper, it sounds a lot like, oh, nobody just has $300, but overall, if you buy your kid a pair of shoes for going back to school, if you buy a new pair of tennis shoes to work out, if you buy yourself some new clothes for the season, you're going to spend $300 naturally. It stayed with you, so it wasn't an issue. And then for people, you're not forcing, but you're allowing people to come into your store to get the check-in code. And by bringing them into the store, more people, you have a higher chance of someone walking out with something because you're bringing more foot traffic into it. So I thought this was a lovely idea. I think it was super fair. Back in the day too, they also had like fire stuff. You could get Yeezys when they were going for like $1,000. You could get Travis Scott Air Forces. So it was definitely like, if you were tapped in, bro, you could easily get a pair of shoes that was very high value, high sought after. So this went on for a minute. And then we developed into our sneaker groups kind of started forming. And so people would broadcast on Twitter live updates for the check-in codes, which still wasn't really an issue because one person, because every check-in code, they rotated. I think they were only applicable for like maybe an hour or so. And every code was different at every store. So one person of each group, you had to go in this certain area to get it. So it's not like one Footlocker code will work universally for everybody, right? So there were still people you still had to go in to get the code. So I thought that was still fair, and it was easier for people who were tapped into these groups. So now we move forward until like, I guess the more modern FLX system, not the one that we have current day. And this one, at first I wasn't like it because I didn't understand it, but basically it was a pay to play type of game, right? So they completely ruled out the check-in codes. You still had the essential head starts. You had to have, like, instead of doing 10 minutes, they did just levels. So the max level was level 3, and it was the same kind of concept. Level 1 just had to be having an account. Level 2, spend X amount of money. And then 3, what was 3? Oh, 3, you had to put in, you had to use your points, and points was dollars. So 1 point was $1 or something. I don't remember the exact conversion, but it was a fair conversion rate, to be honest. And so you would use these points to buy a boost, and that would get you to the max level that you needed to be. So you would use 3 boosts per release, and that would get you at the height of where you need to be to basically compete with everybody else. And this was fine on the surface level, but if you were really tapped in and you started to learn about it, you started to learn that it was more pay to play win, because everybody who had X amount of points, if you had lifetime 100,000 points or more, or not 100,000, 1,000,000, because some people had 1,000,000. But I think when I started getting to 100,000 points, that's when I started winning more. And then when I got to like 300,000, I think it was almost guaranteed for me to win a pair. And so obviously I like this because I was avidly buying shoes, so my points was always good, and I would always have enough head starts, and the algorithm was rocking with me because they saw that I was a big time spender, essentially, to where they're gonna reward me. Now, this was also during a time where there were a lot of, I guess we could call them bulk. I wouldn't even call them resellers, but when I worked at Champs, there would be a handful of guys, right? They would come to our store and they'll see random Ultra Boosts on sale for like $79, retail, I don't know, $160. And they would ask for like 10 pairs. And I'm like, it got a little skeptical. So I go in the back while I'm getting their pairs, and I'm looking on StockX, are these worth something? Like, are they buying it? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, bro, they're making like $1 to $3 profit. Why are they buying all of these? And so it was nothing to ask him. I said, bro, what are you doing this for? He said, honestly, we're just getting our money back, but not only are we raising our StockX level, because there was perks for you to sell X amount of shoes on StockX, but also we're raising up our Footlocker level so that when the Jordans come out or the new release, that our point system will already be high enough, so we're basically guaranteed to get it. And I was like, whoa, that's actually that's super smart, actually. And so I said, well, that's good. And this was honestly a good idea too. Not saying that Footlocker had the idea or the intentions of this when they created the system, but it works in everybody's favor, right? The Footlocker, they're selling stuff that is hard to get rid of. And people also, there's gonna be people that say, well, if the reseller's coming in to buy 10 pairs, then that doesn't leave it for the regular customer, and they don't have the option to buy these shoes on sale. Like I said, I worked at Champs, and these shoes would sit. These shoes would sit on the shelf. They went on sale for a reason. We could literally never get rid of them. There came to a point where some shoes went on sale so much, we kept on decreasing the price to a point where we had to just send them back. That's how low some of these sales got. So if people really wanted them, they could have got them, and that's why I always hate the narrative of resellers are ruining the sneaker game, this and that. I just hate that narrative, because now we're in a time where you can get whatever you want and people still don't get them. But that's a whole nother video, but I just hate that narrative. But anyways, this was very good because not only were resellers able to strive, Footlocker was able to sell products that they normally wouldn't have. So it was a win situation. And honestly, I didn't mind on it because we were working on commission. So when they came in, I'm getting us a bunch of sales. So now the employees are happy. Footlocker managers are happy. Everything was just a revolving circle. Everybody was pleased. Now, before they changed the system, they ended up changing the algorithm because they started to notice, well, when we do these reservations, it's literally the same names every time. And that's true. It was. When I had to look at the reservation list and see who's coming in, it was the same names. At a certain point, I was memorizing people's emails, this and that. It is what it is. And so Footlocker saw that and they were like, well, this isn't really the route that we wanted to go. And it's kind of taking away from the normal consumer who's not purchasing as much compared to a reseller, because a reseller essentially will always have the higher edge because they're making their money back on their purchases versus a regular consumer. They're buying it and keeping it, so they're not making money on it. So essentially, the reseller will always be spending more money. Which, if you wanted to have us a system where it's pay to play, we play it. You dig what I'm saying? But I see in that instance, I see it from both sides, because it is very unfair for, like, you know, the mom who just wants to get her kids a pair of Jordans and this, that, and there's no other way of getting it outside of hoping and praying that somebody didn't pick up their pair the next day, which I didn't think was ultimately fair for some groups. So they ended up deciding they didn't change the system, but they changed the algorithm to the point where it essentially benefited people who were starting new accounts. So if you had 100,000 or less, you had very high chances of winning. So that ultimately, resellers found out, me included, and we just started making new accounts, and we were just back in there somewhere, and it really didn't matter. It overcomplicated things for us a little bit, but every loophole and every trial and tribulation that we had to go through, we could just figure it out. So it wasn't that issue. But this way, I was kind of cool with it. Obviously, made my other accounts obsolete, but you know, it is what it is. You're not gonna be perfect and just running through everything in that number one spot all the time. So it is what it is. Then they just started to reset everybody's account. They said, if you haven't purchased anything in X amount of time, or if you haven't used these points, or if you have these points for this amount of time, you have until this time to use them, or they're gonna get restarted. And this is honestly where I started to just fall off. This is around the same time where sneakers hit a decline. I didn't really need to use the reservations a lot of times because I was just connected. I just had to call people. Yeah, this is where I felt like the system was going downward, right? And so this caused a lot of resellers to kind of stop using the app, because a lot of their accounts were being erased and there wasn't enough product going on for people to be consistently buying to re-up on these accounts, right? Back in the day, there was multiple options and multiple ways to re-up on your account, and you're essentially making all of your money back. But now resale is at a low rate, so it's nothing for us to buy. A lot of the colorways are BS, so we're really not buying anything. So all of our accounts are at a standstill. We have no leeway, but also now this gives an entry point for the regular consumer to basically get on board, because they're kind of on the same level as the resellers and things like that. But now it's not really any good products, and they're saving their money. People aren't spending as much money. So now we're just kind of standstill, where Footlocker is not really making a lot of money. And that's why you see Foot Actions closed down. The Lady Footlockers closed down. A lot of shoes aren't being produced as much. A lot of the sales in Footlocker are going down, etc. So naturally, the business saw the decline, and they said, well, let's go ahead and make a new model. And honestly, I didn't even know for maybe like first couple of weeks that they did a new model. And then I went into a Footlocker and I saw them like posted it up everywhere, just advertising it. And so I kind of went on the app, and there wasn't anything different from how it was before with the boost and the FLX was completely the same. It just had a new look. The only thing difference is now when you do your head starts and you have to use your points, and points are dollars essentially. Back then there was a cap of 3. I think it was 3, and then they moved it to 6. I didn't even talk about that. So yeah, in the midst of all that, originally it was 3. I forget the translation of points, but 3 was a very fair amount. 6 was kind of just like I have the points, but it's annoying. So yeah, they changed it from 3 to 6. So I would say like 6,000 points, I think. I forget the numbers, but you have to use a decent amount of points to get your head starts. And mind you, to put it in context, you really weren't winning unless you used the maximum amount of boost. So you had to use 3 at that time, 6 at this time. But now when they made this new system, they cut the cap off, and you can put as many boosts as you want. And at first I thought it was a glitch, and then I realized it's not. And then once I realized that it wasn't a glitch and you can put 100 boosts, I said, this is literally the worst thing that they could have done, because now you can't scale it. You can't 6 boost. You knew if you were going to hit or not just based on how many points, right? Same thing with the 3. It really came down to how many points. But now with these amount of boosts and it's unlimited points, you still have people with million point accounts. So they can essentially put a million boost. People could put 100 boosts. People could put 50 boosts. But you don't really know how many boosts is guaranteed. And so when I had my first issue with this was I had a customer ask me for the the Olympic Jordan 6. Mind you, the day of this video, they probably came out, I don't know, weeks ago, and they're still in stores. A huge general release, nobody really wanted them, and I put 50 head starts on multiple accounts. I did not hit one. So in my head, I'm thinking, bro, is 50 not enough? I said 50, because 50 was using a lot of my points, like a lot, but I just needed that sale guaranteed. So in that same week, a pair of Kobe's had came out, and I said, well, if 50 didn't work on a GR, let me put more points. I used 85 points on one account. Some accounts I used 20 because I just didn't have enough points. Why am I winning on $20 or 20 point boost? I hit on the 85 too, but well, one of them I actually didn't. So 20 I won to 85 I got on the wait list and didn't get off, and then another 85 I won. So now it's like, oh, it's inconsistent. So I don't know if I should be putting 20, if I should be putting 85, should I be putting 100? And so the bad thing about this is that it's going to basically make everybody broke when it comes to points. Nobody's going to have enough points because nobody knows how to scale it. And mind you, the most people with points are resellers. Now, I've had a conversation with a district manager at the time when I was working at Champs, and we were talking about who really generates most of the company's revenue, resellers or the normal consumer. You might think that it's the reseller, but honestly, it's the normal consumer. However, we shouldn't neglect the reseller because they actually drive a lot of sales. They make a lot of things popular. They buy a lot of your stuff that you aren't normally selling. So mainly the resellers have all of these points, and the resellers are driving a lot of shoes that may not necessarily sell on its own if resale wasn't a thing. And these shoes are important to get off because that just creates a whole new demand psychologically. Oh my God, those sold out. Oh, I need those. So it's going to make somebody want the next release and so forth and so forth. But with not everybody buying anymore, the same psychological effect goes in effect. Oh, nobody wanted those? I'm not really care for the new Jordans. I'll just wait, this and that. So what happens when it's hard to scale and you're just putting up numerous amounts of points? We're going to go to another point where resellers aren't using their points and it hits an all-time low on a decline. And at this point, you just came out with this system, quote unquote, even though it's nothing new except for unlimited points. And I think this was a greedy thing for Footlocker to do because they knew exactly what they're doing. They want people to use more points, so it incentivized them to buy more to get more points. But there's nothing for us to really buy. So this is just like greedy, super greedy to the point where it's just selfish. And it's not going to work, and they're going to hit another decline, bro. And Footlockers already aren't in a good standing as of now, right? With Nike trying to cut out the middleman, them trying to make everything D2C, direct to consumer. So it's just not good for them. And also the brick and mortar mall itself, it's kind of outdated, right? Nobody's really going to the mall as they used to. Everything is kind of online now, and people already have this mindset of like it's impossible to get shoes online, so people don't even bother. So they're really in a lose-lose situation, and this new system is just terrible for them. Honestly, I think they should go back to how it was originally, and honestly, I don't even care if they do the back to the head start movements where you just have to check in with a code.